Chapter 1: The Haunting of Sleep. Sleep, often associated with rest and rejuvenation, can at times become a gateway to inexplicable terror. For some, it isn't the peaceful, restorative experience we imagine, but rather a vulnerable state where the line between reality and nightmare blurs. Sleep paralysis and night terrors stand out as two of the most chilling and mysterious phenomena that transform sleep into a horrifying experience. The terrifying visions and immobilizing fear during these episodes have inspired myths, legends, and even art. This chapter explores the haunting connection between sleep and unexplained phenomena, focusing on real-life accounts of those afflicted, the historical and cultural interpretations of such experiences, and the scientific and paranormal explanations that offer insight into these nocturnal horrors. Real-life accounts: sleep paralysis and nightmares in motion. Imagine waking up, unable to move, speak, or scream. You are fully aware of your surroundings, your bedroom, the dim light creeping through the curtains, but you feel an overwhelming sense of dread. Suddenly, you see a figure, a shadowy presence looming at the edge of the bed, or worse, sitting on your chest, suffocating you. You try to scream, to push it away, but your body remains paralyzed, your voice trapped in your throat. For many who suffer from sleep paralysis, this terrifying experience feels as real as any waking moment. Sleep paralysis is a phenomenon where the body temporarily remains paralyzed while transitioning between sleep and wakefulness. During this state, vivid, often horrifying hallucinations occur, typically accompanied by the sensation of a threatening presence. These hallucinations can manifest as shadowy figures, demons, or even known entities from personal or cultural mythology. While the paralysis itself lasts only seconds to minutes, the psychological impact lingers far longer, leaving many feeling traumatized and afraid of sleep. One particularly disturbing case involved a woman named Vivian, who experienced frequent bouts of sleep paralysis. In one account, she described waking to find a faceless figure standing at the foot of her bed. As she struggled to move, the figure slowly crept closer, eventually sitting on her chest, making it difficult to breathe. The suffocating pressure and the figure's ominous presence left her terrified, though she was completely unable to move or cry out. The vision vanished only when her body finally snapped out of the paralysis. Vivian, like many others who suffer from sleep paralysis, remains haunted by the memory and fears the return of these nighttime horrors. Historical and cultural interpretations: demons, shadows, and the old hag. Throughout history, sleep paralysis has been linked to folklore and supernatural beliefs. Before modern scientific understanding, these episodes were often explained as the work of demons, witches, or evil spirits. Many cultures around the world developed their own myths and explanations for the terrifying visions experienced during sleep paralysis, giving rise to stories of nocturnal creatures that prey upon the vulnerable during sleep. In European folklore, the most infamous figure associated with sleep paralysis is the old hag. This mythological entity is said to sit on the chests of her victims, causing them to feel immense pressure, making it difficult to breathe or move. The old hag is often depicted as a grotesque, withered woman, her face twisted with malice, and her weight so heavy it feels as though she's crushing her victims to death. The legend of the old hag dates back centuries and has become one of the most enduring cultural explanations for the sleep paralysis phenomenon. Similarly, in Islamic cultures, sleep paralysis is sometimes attributed to jinns, supernatural beings made of smokeless fire, who are believed to possess the ability to paralyze and torment humans. According to some beliefs, jinns may sit on a person's chest or whisper terrifying thoughts into their ear, creating the sensation of fear and suffocation. These cultural interpretations offer a way to make sense of the otherwise inexplicable, providing a narrative for the feelings of terror and helplessness that accompany sleep paralysis. Even in modern times, these ancient stories persist, blending with personal experiences to create a sense of dread that feels both psychological and supernatural. Whether it's the old hag, a demon, or some other entity, the visions encountered during sleep paralysis remain eerily consistent across cultures and time. Scientific perspectives: understanding the paralysis. From a scientific perspective, Sleep paralysis occurs during REM, rapid eye movement sleep, the stage of sleep where vivid dreams are most likely to occur. During REM, the body enters a state of temporary paralysis to prevent acting out dreams physically. However, when sleep paralysis occurs, the body remains in this paralyzed state even though the brain is partially awake. This creates a disconnect between the mind and the body, leading to a sense of helplessness and often terrifying hallucinations that blend dream imagery with reality. While science can explain the mechanics of sleep paralysis, it struggles to account for the consistency of certain visions, shadowy figures, malevolent entities, and the feeling of suffocation. Neuroscientists believe that the hallucinations are a result of the brain attempting to make sense of the body's immobility. When the brain cannot move or respond, it may generate threatening figures or situations to explain the sensation of paralysis. Additionally, sleep paralysis is more common among individuals who experience high levels of stress, irregular sleep patterns, or anxiety disorders. This correlation suggests that psychological and environmental factors play a significant role in triggering sleep paralysis episodes. Paranormal interpretations: are these just hallucinations? Despite the scientific explanations, many people remain convinced that their experiences with sleep paralysis are not just hallucinations. The sense of an evil presence, the physical pressure on the chest, and the overwhelming feeling of dread seem too real to be dismissed as mere tricks of the mind. Paranormal investigators often suggest that sleep paralysis might provide a glimpse into another realm or dimension. They argue that the consistency of certain visions, such as shadow figures or demons, points to the possibility of supernatural beings interacting with the living. These investigators propose that during sleep paralysis, the boundary between the physical and spiritual worlds may temporarily dissolve, allowing malevolent spirits to invade the vulnerable mind of the sleeper. One famous artistic representation of this belief is Henry Fuseli's painting The Nightmare, 1781, which depicts a woman sprawled across her bed, seemingly tormented by a demonic figure sitting on her chest. In the background, a ghostly horse peers through curtains, adding to the scene's haunting atmosphere. Fuseli's painting has long been associated with sleep paralysis and serves as a visual testament to the age-old belief in nocturnal demons and spirits. Henry Fuseli's painting The Nightmare encapsulates the terror of sleep paralysis. The demonic incubus sitting on the woman's chest reflects the age-old fear of a supernatural force oppressing its victim during sleep. This imagery aligns closely with the legend of the old hag, an archetype that has persisted through centuries and across cultures. The old hag legend, stemming from European folklore, portrays a terrifying witch-like figure who attacks during the night, causing paralysis and dread. Many cultures, from Newfoundland to Japan, have their own versions of this terrifying nocturnal assailant. The prevalence of this myth suggests a deep-rooted fear that has haunted human consciousness for generations. Sleep paralysis stands at the crossroads between science and the supernatural. Whether viewed as a malfunction of the sleeping brain or a visit from something dark and otherworldly, the haunting of sleep remains one of the most terrifying and mysterious phenomena known to humanity. Chapter 2: Visitors in the Night, Alien Abductions. The concept of alien abduction has fascinated and terrified people for decades. For some, the idea of extraterrestrial beings visiting Earth represents scientific wonder. For others, it symbolizes a deeply personal and harrowing nightmare. Accounts of alien abductions typically describe encounters where individuals are taken, often against their will, by non-human entities for medical examinations, experiments, or inexplicable purposes. What makes these stories particularly disturbing is their consistency across time and culture, as well as the psychological and emotional toll they leave on those who claim to have experienced them. This chapter explores the terrifying world of alien abductions, diving into real-life cases, the aftermath for abductees, and the ongoing debate over whether these encounters represent psychological phenomena or real experiences. Detailed stories of alien abductions. One of the most famous and credible accounts of alien abduction is the story of Betty and Barney Hill. In 1961, the couple was driving through rural New Hampshire when they claimed to have encountered a UFO. After seeing strange lights in the sky, the Hills reported experiencing missing time, several hours that they could not account for. Under hypnosis, both Betty and Barney recalled being taken aboard a spacecraft by humanoid beings. The aliens conducted medical examinations, including skin and hair samples, and inserted needles into their bodies for unknown reasons. Betty later described a star map shown to her by one of the beings, which she believed indicated the extraterrestrials' home system. The Hills' account was groundbreaking because it was the first widely publicized alien abduction story, and it shared eerie similarities with other abduction accounts that would emerge later. Another chilling case is that of Travis Walton, a logger from Arizona. In 1975, Walton and his coworkers were driving home from a job when they saw a bright light hovering above the trees. Walton left the truck to investigate and was struck by a beam of light which appeared to knock him unconscious. His coworkers, terrified, fled the scene. Walton was missing for 5 days. When he reappeared, he claimed to have been taken aboard a spacecraft, where he encountered both humanoid and non-humanoid beings. He described undergoing painful medical procedures and feeling trapped and terrified. Walton's case gained national attention, and while skeptics have tried to discredit his story, his account remains one of the most famous alien abduction cases to date. Whitley Strieber, a well-known author, also claimed to have been abducted by extraterrestrial beings. In his 1987 book Communion, Strieber detailed his terrifying encounters with visitors, beings who abducted him from his cabin in upstate New York. Strieber described being subjected to invasive medical procedures, including probes inserted into his body, and experiencing intense fear and confusion. His book became a bestseller and resonated with thousands of people who claimed to have had similar experiences, solidifying the cultural impact of alien abduction narratives. The psychological and emotional aftermath. The aftermath of alien abductions is often as disturbing as the experiences themselves. Many abductees suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder (PTSD) or exhibit symptoms commonly associated with trauma. Nightmares, anxiety, and paranoia are common, with abductees describing a persistent fear of being taken again. In the case of Betty and Barney Hill, both experienced recurring nightmares and anxiety for years after their alleged abduction. Betty in particular suffered from vivid dreams in which she was aboard the alien spacecraft, replaying the medical experiments in unsettling detail. She felt marked by the experience, and it haunted her for the rest of her life. Travis Walton, after his ordeal, struggled to reintegrate into society. His story garnered widespread media attention, and he became the subject of skepticism and ridicule. Despite passing multiple lie detector tests, Walton faced disbelief from much of the public. The emotional toll of his abduction and the subsequent scrutiny left him isolated and anxious, often questioning the reality of his own experience. For Whitley Strieber, the psychological impact of his abduction led to a lifelong exploration of the alien phenomenon. Strieber sought therapy and delved into hypnosis to recover more memories of his encounters. However, the trauma persisted, and he frequently expressed his deep fear and confusion about the nature of his experiences. Strieber's case is unique in that he continues to wrestle with the possibility that his abductions could be a psychological phenomenon rather than a literal extraterrestrial encounter. Connections between abductions and recurring nightmares. One common thread among abductees is the prevalence of recurring nightmares. Many describe vivid, often terrifying dreams that feel more like relived experiences than mere figments of the subconscious. For some, these nightmares begin after their abduction experiences, while others claim to have had these dreams long before any conscious recollection of an abduction. In Communion, Strieber described experiencing recurring nightmares that blurred the line between dreams and waking reality. He reported vivid visions of the visitors and the feeling of being physically restrained while they conducted experiments on him. These dreams, he believed, were memories of real events suppressed by his conscious mind. Betty Hill also suffered from recurring nightmares of her abduction experience, which were instrumental in unlocking her repressed memories under hypnosis. Her dreams followed a consistent pattern, replaying the details of her time aboard the alien craft, particularly the invasive medical procedures. Many abductees, like Hill, describe a profound sense of violation in their dreams, as though the aliens not only invaded their personal space, but also their very minds. Debunking or validating abductions, hypnosis, false memories, or real phenomena. One of the most controversial aspects of alien abduction cases is the use of hypnosis to recover suppressed memories. In many cases, abductees only recall the details of their abductions after undergoing hypnotic regression. This has led to accusations that these memories are false, implanted by the suggestive nature of hypnosis, or influenced by external factors like media and popular culture. Psychologists such as Elizabeth Loftus, a leading expert on memory, argue that the mind is highly susceptible to suggestion, particularly under hypnosis. Loftus and others believe that many abduction stories are the result of false memories, constructed by the brain in response to external cues or internal anxieties. For example, the Hill case occurred during a period of heightened UFO interest in the United States, and skeptics argue that media coverage of UFO sightings may have influenced their account. On the other hand, proponents of the extraterrestrial hypothesis argue that the consistency of abduction stories, often across cultures and time periods, points to a real phenomenon. Many abductees, including those with no prior interest in UFOs, describe similar experiences, being taken aboard spacecraft, subjected to medical examinations, and encountering non-human entities. This consistency, they argue, suggests that these stories are more than just psychological constructs. The use of hypnosis remains a divisive issue. While some believe it provides valuable insight into repressed memories, others caution that it can create false memories, leading to confusion between fact and fiction. In the case of alien abductions, the truth may lie somewhere in between, an unsettling mix of real experiences, psychological phenomena, and the mysterious workings of the human mind. The phenomenon of alien abduction occupies a unique space in the human psyche, blending elements of fear, trauma, and the unknown. For those who claim to have been abducted, the experience is not just a fleeting nightmare, but a life-altering event with profound psychological and emotional consequences. Chapter 3: Unseen Entities, Shadow People, and Spectral Beings. Among the many unexplained phenomena that haunt the edges of our reality, encounters with shadow people and spectral beings are some of the most chilling. These entities, often described as dark, shadowy figures, seem to exist just beyond the limits of our vision, manifesting in fleeting moments or during the terrifying stillness of night. For those who have experienced these encounters, the feeling of being watched, or worse, threatened, by something unseen is as real as any physical presence. This chapter delves into the eerie world of shadow people and other unseen entities, exploring real-life encounters, theories from paranormal experts, and the psychological explanations for these terrifying visions. Descriptions of shadow people and their menacing presence in homes. Shadow people are typically described as dark, human-like figures that appear at the edge of one's vision or suddenly in a room, only to disappear moments later. Unlike ghosts, which are often perceived as transparent or ethereal, shadow people are described as dense and opaque, sometimes appearing as silhouettes or darker-than-dark voids. They are often reported to have no discernible facial features, though some individuals have claimed to see glowing red eyes in particularly frightening encounters. These entities are typically associated with feelings of dread and malevolence, making their presence deeply unsettling. One of the most common places for encounters with shadow people is in the home, particularly in bedrooms during the night. Many people report waking up to find a shadowy figure standing in a corner of their room or even directly above them. The feeling of being watched, or even the sense of an impending threat, is often overwhelming, yet the figures usually vanish as quickly as they appear. These nocturnal encounters frequently occur in conjunction with sleep paralysis, a condition where the body is temporarily unable to move upon waking, leaving the person trapped in a state between sleep and consciousness. A well-documented account comes from Heidi Hollis, a researcher who has written extensively on the topic of shadow people. Hollis herself claims to have encountered these entities in her own home and has collected numerous stories from individuals across the world who have experienced similar phenomena. In one case, a man described waking up in the middle of the night to see a shadowy figure standing at the foot of his bed. The figure appeared to lean over him, radiating an oppressive feeling of fear and malice. He tried to move but found himself paralyzed, unable to scream or call for help. After what felt like an eternity, the figure disappeared, leaving him shaken and unable to return to sleep. Accounts from individuals who have been haunted by unseen, malevolent entities. Many people who encounter shadow people or other unseen entities describe the experiences as deeply traumatic, with some claiming that the hauntings persisted for months or even years. One particularly haunting case is that of a woman named Debbie, who shared her story on the popular paranormal forum, the Shadowlands. Debbie claimed that for several months, she was haunted by a tall, shadowy figure that would appear at the foot of her bed almost every night. Unlike other accounts where the figure remained passive, Debbie's shadow person seemed to actively torment her, causing strange phenomena in her home, such as flickering lights and objects moving on their own. Debbie's story took a darker turn when she began experiencing physical symptoms during her encounters. She reported waking up with unexplained bruises and scratches, which she believed were caused by the shadow figure. The oppressive presence of the entity left her feeling exhausted and fearful for her safety. Paranormal investigators who visited Debbie's home reported feeling an overwhelming sense of dread in the bedroom where the figure appeared, but they were unable to provide a clear explanation for what was happening. Debbie eventually moved out of the home, and the phenomena ceased, but she remains deeply affected by the experiences to this day. In another case, shared by a woman named Elise on the My Haunting website, the presence of a shadow figure seemed to coincide with a series of personal tragedies. Elise first noticed the figure shortly after her mother's sudden death. At first, it appeared as a fleeting shadow at the corner of her vision, but over time, the encounters became more intense. The figure would stand at the end of her hallway or next to her bed, always watching, never moving. Elise described the feeling of the figure's presence as dark and heavy, as though it was feeding off her grief and sadness. She experienced nightmares and intense feelings of depression during this time, and although she eventually sought counseling to help cope with her loss, the figure didn't disappear until months later, after her emotional state had improved. Paranormal experts' take on these beings and their connection to dark energy. Paranormal experts have long debated the nature of shadow people and other spectral beings. Some believe these entities are manifestations of dark energy, drawn to locations or individuals where negative emotions such as fear, anger, or grief are particularly strong. The theory is that shadow people feed off these emotions, growing stronger as the person's emotional state deteriorates. This explanation aligns with many accounts where shadow people are said to appear during times of intense personal distress, such as after the loss of a loved one or during a period of depression or anxiety. Others in the paranormal community theorize that shadow people may be interdimensional beings, slipping into our reality from another plane of existence. According to this theory, the shadowy appearance of these entities is due to the fact that they exist on a different frequency than humans, making them visible only in fleeting moments when their dimension overlaps with ours. This idea is often supported by the fact that shadow people are most commonly seen at the edges of vision, where our peripheral sight is less sharp and more prone to detecting movement. Some paranormal investigators also suggest that shadow people could be a form of residual energy, echoes of past traumatic events that have left an imprint on a location. This would explain why shadow people are often seen in places where negative or violent events have occurred. The figures are not necessarily malevolent in these cases, but rather a reflection of the energy left behind by those who suffered or died there. Psychological explanations, and why some people are more prone to seeing these entities. While paranormal explanations offer a compelling narrative for the existence of shadow people and spectral beings, psychology offers a more grounded interpretation. Sleep paralysis, for example, is often cited as a primary cause for many shadow person encounters. During sleep paralysis, the brain is partially awake, but the body remains immobile. This can lead to hallucinations, as the brain attempts to make sense of the paralysis. Many people who experience sleep paralysis report seeing shadowy figures or feeling an oppressive presence in the room with them, which may be the brain's way of interpreting the fear and helplessness caused by the paralysis. In addition to sleep paralysis, psychological factors such as stress, anxiety, and trauma may also contribute to shadow person sightings. People who are under intense emotional strain are more likely to experience hallucinations, particularly in low-light conditions where the brain can easily misinterpret shadows and shapes. The phenomenon of pareidolia, the brain's tendency to see familiar shapes in random patterns, may also play a role, causing people to perceive faces or figures in shadows where none exist. Some researchers believe that cultural factors may influence the likelihood of seeing shadow people as well. In cultures where supernatural beliefs are prevalent, individuals may be more prone to interpret strange experiences as paranormal. For example, the concept of the old hag in Newfoundland and Scandinavian folklore describes a malevolent entity that sits on the chest of a sleeping person, causing feelings of suffocation. This phenomenon is now widely recognized as sleep paralysis, but the cultural lens through which it was viewed led to the creation of a terrifying supernatural narrative. Encounters with shadow people and unseen entities are among the most frightening paranormal experiences reported by individuals across the world. Whether these beings are manifestations of dark energy, interdimensional visitors, or psychological projections of our own fears, their presence leaves a lasting impact on those who encounter them. For some, the explanation lies in the realm of the paranormal, while others turn to psychology for answers. Regardless of the cause, the chilling sensation of being watched by something unseen continues to haunt the dark corners of human experience, reminding us that some mysteries may never be fully explained. Chapter 4: Cursed Places, Locations You Can't Escape. Throughout history, there have been certain places believed to be cursed, locations where misfortune, tragedy, and unexplained phenomena seem to cling like a dark cloud. Whether it's a house that has seen unrelenting horror or a region with a history steeped in bloodshed, these cursed places captivate our imagination and evoke deep-seated fears. This chapter explores some of the most notorious cursed locations, delving into their history, real-life accounts of those who have lived there, and the paranormal investigations that seek to uncover the truth behind the lingering darkness. The true stories behind famously cursed places. The Amityville Horror House. One of the most infamous cursed locations in modern history is the Amityville Horror House in Long Island, New York. In 1974, 23-year-old Ronald DeFeo Jr. murdered 6 members of his family as they slept in their beds. The gruesome crime shocked the nation, but the story that followed gained even more notoriety. In 1975, George and Kathy Lutz, along with their 3 children, moved into the DeFeo family home. Almost immediately, they began experiencing terrifying phenomena, which they claimed were the result of malevolent forces haunting the house. According to the Lutzes, they were plagued by strange occurrences, including foul odors, unexplained cold spots, and mysterious green slime oozing from the walls. George Lutz also reported waking up every night at 3:15 a.m., the time when the DeFeo murders took place. The family endured these disturbing events for 28 days before fleeing the house in terror, leaving behind all of their belongings. Their story became the basis for the Amityville Horror, a best-selling book and a series of films. However, many have questioned the veracity of the Lutz's claims. Some investigators believe the haunting was a hoax, concocted to capitalize on the tragedy of the DeFeo murders. Skeptics have pointed out inconsistencies in the Lutz's accounts, while others, including Ed and Lorraine Warren, renowned paranormal investigators, have asserted that the house is indeed cursed. The debate over the truth of the Amityville Horror continues, but for many, the house remains a symbol of malevolent forces that can inhabit a place and wreak havoc on those who live there. The Winchester Mystery House. Another legendary cursed location is the Winchester Mystery House in San Jose, California. The sprawling mansion, with its labyrinthine hallways, staircases that lead to nowhere, and doors that open into walls, was built by Sarah Winchester, widow of William Winchester, heir to the Winchester Repeating Arms Company. After her husband and infant daughter died, Sarah Winchester reportedly sought the advice of a medium, who told her that her family was cursed by the spirits of those killed by the Winchester rifle. Believing that these restless spirits were seeking vengeance, Sarah Winchester began construction on the mansion in 1886 and continued building until her death in 1922. The house was designed to confuse and trap the vengeful spirits, with rooms added haphazardly and without purpose. The result is a bizarre and sprawling structure that has captured the imagination of visitors and paranormal enthusiasts alike. Visitors to the Winchester Mystery House have reported strange phenomena, including ghostly apparitions, disembodied voices, and objects moving on their own. Some believe that the spirits of those killed by the Winchester rifle still haunt the mansion, while others see it as a monument to Sarah Winchester's obsession with escaping the curse. Paranormal investigators have conducted numerous investigations at the mansion, and while some claim to have captured evidence of ghostly activity, others believe the house's eerie atmosphere is a result of its unsettling design rather than any supernatural forces. How living in these locations can lead to recurring nightmares and unexplained misfortunes. Living in a cursed location can have a profound impact on those who reside there. For many, the fear of being haunted or cursed leads to recurring nightmares, feelings of dread, and unexplained misfortunes. In some cases, these experiences can be attributed to the psychological effects of living in a place with a dark history, but in others, the phenomena seem to defy rational explanation. In the case of the Amityville horror house, the Lutz family reported a range of disturbing phenomena that seemed to intensify over time. In addition to the physical manifestations of the haunting, such as strange odors and cold spots, the family experienced a deep sense of unease and terror that permeated their daily lives. George Lutz, in particular, became obsessed with the house, growing increasingly irritable and paranoid. The family's experiences culminated in their decision to flee the house in the middle of the night, convinced that they were in danger from the malevolent forces within. Similarly, those who have lived in the Winchester Mystery House have reported feeling overwhelmed by the oppressive atmosphere of the mansion. The house's confusing layout and strange design create a sense of disorientation and unease, which can lead to nightmares and feelings of being watched. While some attribute these feelings to the psychological effects of living in such an unusual environment, others believe that the house is truly haunted by the spirits of those killed by the Winchester rifle. Urban legends versus real-world accounts of cursed locations. Cursed places often give rise to urban legends, which can blur the line between fiction and reality. In many cases, the stories surrounding these locations become exaggerated over time, as each new retelling adds more layers of fear and mystery. However, there are often real-world events and experiences that form the basis for these legends. The Amityville horror is a prime example of how an urban legend can evolve from real-world events. While the Lutz's story has been widely criticized as a hoax, the fact remains that 6 people were brutally murdered in the house, and the tragic events surrounding the DeFeo family continue to cast a shadow over the property. Similarly, the Winchester Mystery House, with its bizarre architecture and tragic backstory, has inspired numerous ghost stories and legends, but the real-life history of Sarah Winchester's grief and obsession is at the heart of the tale. In other cases, the line between urban legend and real-world experience is even more blurred. For example, the town of Dudleytown in Connecticut is said to be cursed, with numerous reports of strange occurrences, deaths, and disappearances. While some attribute these events to the supernatural, others point to the town's history of isolation and mental illness as a more likely explanation. Paranormal investigators and thrill-seekers continue to visit Dudleytown, drawn by the allure of its dark reputation, but whether the town is truly cursed remains a matter of debate. Paranormal investigations into the lingering energies trapped in these places. Paranormal investigators have long been fascinated by cursed locations, seeking to uncover the truth behind the strange phenomena reported by those who have lived there. Using a variety of tools and techniques, including electromagnetic field, EMF detectors, infrared cameras, and audio recorders, investigators attempt to capture evidence of ghostly activity and residual energy. In the case of the Winchester Mystery House, numerous paranormal investigations have been conducted over the years, with some investigators claiming to have captured compelling evidence of ghostly apparitions and unexplained sounds. One of the most famous investigations was conducted by the Travel Channel's Ghost Adventures team, who spent a night in the mansion and reported experiencing strange sensations and capturing unexplained sounds on their equipment. Similarly, the Amityville Horror House has been the subject of multiple investigations, including one by Ed and Lorraine Warren, who claimed to have encountered a malevolent presence in the house. The Warrens' investigation was controversial, with skeptics accusing them of fabricating evidence, but their findings continue to fuel the debate over whether the house is truly cursed. Cursed places have long fascinated and terrified those who seek to understand the forces that may be at play in these dark locations. As investigators, skeptics, and believers alike explore these locations, the question remains, are these places truly cursed, or do we project our fears onto them, turning ordinary spaces into symbols of terror? Whether real or imagined, the impact of these cursed places on the human psyche is undeniable, leaving us with a chilling reminder that some places may never be fully escaped. Chapter 5: The Phenomenon of Doppelgangers, the Terror of Seeing Yourself. The concept of doppelgangers, mysterious doubles who appear as exact replicas of a person, has long haunted the human imagination. Across cultures and throughout history, doppelgangers have been regarded as ominous figures, often seen as harbingers of death, bad luck, or sinister omens. For those who claim to have encountered their own double or seen the doppelganger of a loved one, the experience is deeply unsettling, blurring the line between reality and the unknown. This chapter explores ancient beliefs surrounding doppelgangers, modern-day encounters, scientific and paranormal explanations, and the psychological impact of this eerie phenomenon. Ancient beliefs about doppelgangers as harbingers of death. In many ancient cultures, doppelgangers were seen as omens of misfortune, particularly death. The term doppelganger itself comes from the German word meaning double goer or double walker. The belief in spirit doubles or identical apparitions can be found across a wide range of cultural traditions. In Norse mythology, there is a concept called the Vardogr, which refers to a spirit that precedes a person, appearing in their likeness before the individual actually arrives. The Vardogr was not necessarily malevolent, but was believed to be a premonition of an impending event, often related to death or illness. In ancient Egypt, the Ka was a part of the human soul that could take on the appearance of the physical body. While the Ka was usually viewed as a protective force, it could become a harbinger of doom if seen by its living counterpart. Egyptians believed that encountering one's Ka outside of death was a dire warning that death was imminent. Similarly, in Celtic folklore, the fetch was a ghostly double of a living person that, if seen by someone, signaled that the person was doomed to die soon. These beliefs show how deeply ingrained the idea of doppelgangers as death omens has been in various cultural histories, intensifying the fear surrounding their appearances. Modern-day cases of people claiming to have seen their own doppelganger. Despite the modern age of science and technology, reports of doppelganger encounters have persisted. Many people claim to have seen their own double, while others report witnessing an exact duplicate of a loved one, only to find out that the real person was nowhere near the sighting location. These real-world encounters often leave individuals shaken and confused as they struggle to make sense of the bizarre phenomenon. One famous case is that of Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, the renowned German writer and statesman. Goethe claimed to have encountered his own doppelganger while riding on a road. He described seeing himself dressed in unfamiliar clothing, riding in the opposite direction. Years later, Goethe found himself traveling that same road, wearing the exact outfit he had seen on his double. For Goethe, the doppelganger was not a terrifying figure, but a curious glimpse into a future moment. A more chilling account comes from the case of Émilie Saget, a French schoolteacher in the mid-19th century. Saget's doppelganger was frequently seen by her students and colleagues, who reported witnessing the double appear beside her or in her place while Saget herself was visibly occupied elsewhere. The doppelganger would sometimes mimic her movements, and other times it acted independently. Saget never saw her own double, but the constant sightings caused her to lose her job as parents began withdrawing their children from the school in fear. The case of Émilie Saget remains one of the most documented and unsettling doppelganger incidents. Another modern case is that of Vice President John Adams, who reportedly saw his own doppelganger on the day of his death in 1826. According to accounts, Adams had been gravely ill when a witness claimed to have seen him walking around outside, despite the fact that he had been bedridden for days. Shortly after this sighting, Adams passed away, leading to speculation that the doppelganger had been a sign of his impending death. Scientific and paranormal interpretations of the phenomenon. The doppelganger phenomenon has intrigued both scientists and paranormal researchers for centuries, leading to a range of explanations that span from neurological to metaphysical. From a scientific perspective, doppelganger encounters could be linked to psychological or neurological conditions. One possible explanation is autoscopy, a condition where a person experiences seeing their own body from an external perspective. This phenomenon is closely associated with out-of-body experiences and is believed to result from disruptions in the brain's ability to integrate sensory information. In particular, damage or overstimulation of the temporoparietal junction, the area of the brain responsible for self-perception, can lead to autoscopy. Another scientific explanation involves Cagrat delusion, a psychiatric disorder in which a person believes that a loved one has been replaced by an identical imposter. While not exactly a doppelganger phenomenon, it reflects how the mind can perceive doubles of people, even when no physical duplicate exists. Some researchers argue that doppelganger sightings may be the result of dissociative states, hallucinations, or memory errors. On the paranormal side, many believe that doppelgangers are manifestations of a person's spirit or astral body. Some cultures hold that everyone has a spirit double, which can sometimes appear to others under certain circumstances. Paranormal investigators often associate doppelgangers with supernatural energy or dimensional shifts, suggesting that the apparition is a reflection from an alternate reality or parallel universe. This explanation aligns with the belief that doppelgangers can provide a glimpse into the future, as in the case of Goethe's experience. The psychological impact of seeing a doppelganger. The experience of seeing one's own doppelganger, or that of a loved one, can have a profound psychological impact on individuals. Even in cases where the doppelganger is seen by others, the person it represents often experiences anxiety, fear, and confusion in the aftermath of such an encounter. One reason for this psychological distress is the deeply ingrained belief that doppelgangers are omens of death or misfortune. Even in modern times, when such superstitions are less widely accepted, the eerie nature of seeing a duplicate of oneself can trigger existential fears. Many report feeling as though their sense of identity has been shattered, as if the appearance of the doppelganger represents a loss of control over their own life or fate. The appearance of a doppelganger can also lead to recurring nightmares, in which the individual is haunted by the vision of their double. In these dreams, the doppelganger may act as a sinister presence, watching or following the person, but never speaking or interacting. The psychological impact of these nightmares can carry over into waking life, leading to feelings of paranoia or anxiety. Moreover, some people who have seen a doppelganger report feeling as though they are being stalked by their own double. In these cases, the doppelganger may reappear over time, reinforcing the belief that the individual is marked for death or some other tragic fate. This can lead to a kind of psychological torment, as the person becomes fixated on the idea that their doppelganger is an inescapable force. The phenomenon of doppelgangers continues to fascinate and terrify people across cultures and throughout history. For those who have encountered their own double or seen the doppelganger of a loved one, the experience is often unsettling, leaving them to grapple with the fear of what such a sighting might mean. Chapter 6: Phantoms of Technology When the Digital World Turns Dark. The rise of modern technology has brought unprecedented advances in communication, information sharing, and convenience, but it has also opened new avenues for eerie and unexplained phenomena. The once mysterious world of spirits and hauntings has found its way into our everyday lives through devices like phones, computers, and social media. Ghostly messages, unexplained electronics activity, and eerie recordings now blur the line between the physical and digital realms. This chapter delves into real-life cases of people receiving messages from the dead via modern technology, explores the phenomenon of electronic voice phenomena, EVP, and examines whether our growing dependency on technology might make us more susceptible to supernatural fears. Creepy occurrences of people receiving messages from the dead. In the digital age, reports of people receiving mysterious messages from deceased loved ones via phone calls, text messages, social media, and email have become increasingly common. What makes these cases particularly unsettling is that they often occur after the person has passed away, leading to questions about whether technology can act as a conduit for the dead. One such case is that of Jack Froese, a 32-year-old man who passed away unexpectedly from heart arrhythmia in 2011. Several months after his death, Froese's friends began receiving emails from his account. One of the emails sent to his close friend Tim Hart read, "Did you hear me? I'm at your house. Clean your effing attic." The message was especially eerie because Froese and Hart had had a private conversation in Froese's attic just before his death. To this day, no one can explain how the email was sent. Hart maintains that no one else had access to Froese's account, and the chilling specificity of the message has left him questioning whether his late friend somehow found a way to reach out from beyond the grave. In another instance, a British woman named Sherry Emerson received a series of text messages from her grandmother, who had passed away 3 years earlier. Before her death, Emerson's grandmother had been buried with her mobile phone, as it was something she was attached to during her life. Sherry would occasionally send texts to the phone as a way to cope with her grief, even though she knew she wouldn't receive a response. One day, however, she did receive a message. The text read, "I'm watching over you," and was signed with her grandmother's name. Sherry initially believed it was a cruel prank, but after investigating, she discovered that the phone number had been reassigned to a stranger who was unaware of the previous owner's story. Although the explanation in this case was mundane, the incident reflects how deeply unsettling it can be to receive communication from someone believed to be unreachable. These cases are part of a growing body of reports suggesting that technology may act as a bridge between the living and the dead, offering a modern twist on age-old beliefs about spirits communicating with the living. The phenomenon of electronic voice phenomena, EVP. Electronic voice phenomena, EVP, refers to the mysterious voices and sounds captured through electronic devices, often during paranormal investigations. EVP recordings are usually made on audio devices, such as digital recorders, and are said to capture voices that are not heard by human ears at the time of recording. Paranormal investigators often use these devices during ghost hunts, believing that spirits can manipulate electronic frequencies to make themselves heard. One of the most famous examples of EVP occurred in 1959 when a Swedish film producer named Fredrik Jurgensen accidentally recorded what he believed to be the voice of his deceased mother while taping bird sounds. This discovery led him to begin experimenting with recording devices in an attempt to communicate with the dead. Jurgensen's work laid the foundation for what would become a major component of modern paranormal investigation. Since then, EVP has become a staple of ghost hunting, with investigators worldwide reporting eerie, unexplained voices on their recordings. In many cases, these voices are brief and unclear, often requiring careful analysis to interpret. However, some recordings are chillingly direct. In 2007, a paranormal investigation team conducted an investigation at the St. Augustine Lighthouse in Florida, a site long believed to be haunted. During the investigation, the team captured an EVP of a child's voice clearly saying, "Help me." The voice seemed to correspond to the tragic death of 3 children who had drowned near the lighthouse in the late 19th century. The recording remains one of the most convincing examples of EVP, sparking debate about whether technology can truly capture the voices of the dead. Real-life cases where technology seemed to act as a conduit for supernatural forces. Beyond EVP and ghostly messages, there are numerous cases in which technology itself seems to become a vessel for paranormal activity. Electronics such as televisions, radios, and computers have long been reported as being manipulated by unseen forces, often acting erratically in haunted locations or following a person after a loss. In several accounts, people have reported their televisions turning on and off by themselves, radios playing inexplicable voices, and computers displaying disturbing images or messages seemingly at random. Some paranormal researchers believe that spirits may be able to manipulate energy fields, which in turn can affect the behavior of electronic devices. In the late 1990s, the Scully experiment became a well-known case in the paranormal community. Tom and Lisa Butler, who led the American Association of Electronic Voice Phenomena, AEVP, claimed they could capture voices of the dead through random image generators on their computer. They documented numerous instances where strange faces and figures appeared in the static of the images. The Butlers believed these images were direct communications from spirits attempting to reach the living through digital technology. Psychological analysis of technology and its potential to amplify fears. Our increasing reliance on technology has had profound effects on our psychology, including how we interpret strange or unsettling experiences. The very nature of technology, its invisibility, the way it can act without our direct control, and its ability to carry out complex tasks, creates a sense of mystery that can easily blend into the paranormal. Psychologists suggest that the phenomenon of receiving messages from the dead or experiencing haunted technology might stem from grief, anxiety, and our need for connection. In the case of someone receiving a text or email from a deceased loved one, for example, the mind may be more inclined to interpret a glitch or error as a sign from beyond, due to the emotional weight of the loss. Grieving individuals may find comfort in the idea that their loved one is reaching out, even if the cause is a mundane technical error. Furthermore, as we spend more time interacting with screens and devices, we may project our fears and anxieties onto technology, seeing sinister patterns where none exist. In this way, technology acts as both a mirror and a canvas for our deepest fears, amplifying the dread that comes with unexplained phenomena. In the digital age, the boundary between the living and the dead seems to be more permeable than ever, at least in the realm of communication. With the rise of haunted technology, ghostly texts, and EVP recordings, the paranormal has found a new home in our electronic devices. Whether these phenomena are real or simply psychological projections, the fear they evoke is undeniable. As technology continues to evolve, so too may our relationship with the unknown, leading us to question whether the digital world may indeed serve as a bridge to the afterlife or merely a reflection of our most primal fears. Chapter 7: Flesh and Blood When Nightmares Cross into Reality. For most, nightmares are dismissed as fleeting, unsettling experiences that evaporate upon waking, leaving only a lingering sense of fear or unease. However, in some rare and terrifying instances, nightmares have transcended the realm of imagination, manifesting in real-world consequences with dire effects. From cases where nightmares caused physical harm or even death, to chilling stories of people predicting tragic events through dreams, this chapter explores the frightening possibility that the boundary between nightmares and reality may not be as impermeable as we think. Nightmare deaths of Hmong refugees. One of the most disturbing examples of nightmares crossing into reality is the case of the nightmare deaths that occurred among Hmong refugees in the United States during the late 1970s and early 1980s. The Hmong are an ethnic group from Southeast Asia, many of whom fled to the U.S. after the Vietnam War. Despite escaping the war, Some of these refugees were haunted by something far more insidious, recurring nightmares that would ultimately lead to their deaths. Between 1977 and 1983, at least 117 Hmong men, many of them young and healthy, died suddenly in their sleep. Their deaths were inexplicable. Autopsies revealed no clear cause, and the phenomenon baffled medical experts. These deaths became known as sudden unexplained nocturnal death syndrome, SUNS, and while it primarily affected the Hmong population, similar cases have been documented in other ethnic groups, including Filipinos and Laotians. Survivors and families of the deceased reported that the victims had often been plagued by terrifying nightmares in the weeks or days leading up to their deaths. In many of these cases, the victims described feeling as though they were being attacked or suffocated by a malevolent force during their sleep, an experience that closely mirrors sleep paralysis but with fatal consequences. Some researchers speculate that the stress of displacement, along with the trauma of war and resettlement, may have contributed to the deaths. However, within the Hmong community, many believe that the deaths were caused by a nocturnal spirit known as dabtsog, a supernatural entity that attacks people in their sleep. According to Hmong beliefs, this spirit could steal the breath of its victims, leading to their untimely deaths. Whether caused by psychological stress, cultural belief, or an unknown medical condition, the nightmare deaths of the Hmong refugees remain one of the most chilling and unexplained phenomena in modern medical history. Nightmares predicting real-life tragedies. Nightmares not only have the potential to inflict harm, but can also serve as eerie premonitions of future events. Throughout history, there have been numerous accounts of individuals experiencing vivid, recurring nightmares that predicted real-life tragedies. One of the most famous examples is the case of Abraham Lincoln. In early 1865, just days before his assassination, Lincoln confided in his wife and a few close friends that he had a disturbing dream. In the dream, he wandered through the White House and stumbled upon a funeral scene. When he asked one of the soldiers who had died, the soldier replied, "The President." Lincoln's dream deeply unsettled him, and although he brushed it off as a mere figment of his imagination, it would prove to be tragically prophetic. Similarly, there are modern cases of people experiencing nightmares that seem to predict natural disasters or accidents. In 1966, a Welsh coal mining village called Aberfan was devastated when a coal waste pile collapsed onto a school, killing 144 people, most of them children. After the tragedy, hundreds of people came forward to report that they had experienced dreams or premonitions about the disaster. One of the most haunting accounts came from a 10-year-old girl named Errol Mai Jones, who had told her mother just days before the disaster, "I dreamed I went to school and there was no school there. Something black had come down all over it." Errol was one of the victims of the Aberfan disaster, and her dream has since been viewed as an eerie premonition. The idea that dreams can foretell future events has been debated by psychologists, neuroscientists, and paranormal researchers. Some believe that these premonitions could be the result of the brain's ability to process subtle cues and information that we are not consciously aware of, while others argue that these dreams are merely coincidences. Regardless of the explanation, these cases add to the unsettling notion that nightmares may, at times, be more than just random figments of the subconscious. Paranormal explanations, negative energy, and spiritual harm. In many cultures and spiritual traditions, it is believed that negative energy or malevolent spirits can cause harm to individuals while they sleep. In these belief systems, nightmares are often seen as the manifestation of an attack by an external force, such as a demon, restless spirit, or curse. One such belief is the phenomenon of the old hag, a supernatural entity found in folklore across different cultures. In Caribbean and African traditions, the old hag is said to sit on a person's chest as they sleep, causing nightmares, feelings of suffocation, and even death. This experience is strikingly similar to sleep paralysis, a condition where the sleeper is conscious but unable to move and often experiences hallucinations. However, those who believe in the old hag argue that what they are experiencing is not a mere sleep disorder, but a supernatural attack. In Hinduism, the concept of bhoot, restless spirits of the dead who have not been properly appeased, can also bring about nightmares or even physical harm. Individuals who are haunted by such spirits may experience recurring nightmares where they are tormented or even physically assaulted by the spirit. In some cases, these spirits are believed to cause accidents or illnesses in the waking world as well, blurring the line between dream and reality. Paranormal investigators have documented numerous cases where individuals claim to have been physically harmed by spirits during sleep. These claims include unexplained scratches, bruises, and even bite marks that appear after a particularly vivid nightmare. While skeptics attribute these injuries to sleepwalking, self-inflicted harm, or other medical conditions, those who have experienced them often believe they are the result of a malevolent force. The power of belief, blurring the line between dream and reality. One of the most compelling aspects of nightmares that manifest in reality is the role that belief plays in giving these experiences power. Psychologists have long understood the connection between belief and perception, and in cases of paranormal phenomena, this connection can be particularly potent. When individuals deeply believe in the supernatural or in the malevolent power of nightmares, their fear can amplify the experience, making it feel more real. This is especially true in cases of sleep paralysis, where the mind is caught in a liminal state between waking and dreaming. In these moments, the boundaries between dream and reality become blurred, and what is imagined can feel physically present. For those who believe they are being attacked by a spirit or a curse, the psychological impact can be profound, leading to real-world physical symptoms like elevated heart rate, sweating, and even fainting. Cultural conditioning also plays a significant role. For example, in communities where belief in spirits and curses is strong, individuals may be more likely to interpret their nightmares as real attacks rather than products of their own minds. This belief can create a feedback loop, where the fear of the supernatural intensifies the experience, leading to even more terrifying nightmares. Nightmares are often dismissed as harmless byproducts of an overactive mind, but as this chapter demonstrates, they can have very real and dangerous consequences. Whether through mysterious deaths, eerie premonitions, or physical harm, the line between nightmare and reality is not always as clear-cut as we would like to believe. For some, the terror experienced in dreams does not end upon waking. It spills over into the waking world, leaving a trail of fear, injury, and sometimes even death in its wake. As we continue to explore the boundaries of the mind and the supernatural, one thing remains certain: nightmares at times can become all too real.